I have been using this book to manifest my desires for 2 years, right? And you can call this my journal, you can call this my magic diary. Like, I haven't named it yet, but for the sake of this video, let's just call it my journal. So, the way I use my journal is very much different from how other people use it, right? So, I have 7 use cases, right? I use this book, this journal in 7 different ways, and that is what I'm going to share this video. And by using the way that I use it, I was able to manifest many of my desires. Like, usually in my manifestation practice, I have a specific goal in mind, or like the main goals that I tend to focus on. But also there are other intentions, other desires that I would like to have. Like, even if they don't manifest, I don't care, right? But it would be nice to have them. So for those lesser desires, I use this book. And for the main desires I have posted a video on the only technique I use, right? So check out that video. I will link in the description. But as for this video, I mean, this book has also helped me to manifest my big goals and desires as well. So this is very much powerful. So I'm going to discuss how I use it in this video. So I know I am yapping a bit, but let's start. So the first use case I have for this book is I would like to write confessions about things I do that I feel guilty of. This need not be me harassing someone or me being rude to someone, not like that. But in our day to day life, we have our vices, right? We have certain addictions, we have certain vices, we have certain things that we're not proud of. So when I started this practice 2 years ago, I had a lot of addictions, right? I was addicted to video games, I was addicted to social media, so I was addicted to a bunch of things. And whenever I tend to do them, I would feel guilty, I would feel shameful, I would feel why did I do this, right? And if you have been following my channel, you know how detrimental these emotions such as guilt and shame are to our frequency, right? Like, if you're riddled with guilt and shame, that will affect your frequency, and the universe will bring more circumstances and events to make you more guilty, to make you more shameful, right? So I knew that those emotions were affecting me. So the one way I use my journal is I would just write it down, my confession to God, to my higher self, to the higher source, right? So if you're an atheist or if you don't believe in God, just think of your higher self, just think of your future self, and just apologize to Him, and just apologize to Him. Just say sorry, just confess whatever you're feeling, right? It is a way of journaling, but it is meant to cleanse your emotions, right? Whatever you're feeling, if you're feeling guilty or shameful or fearful, you can use this technique to just write down whatever that comes to mind and just ask for forgiveness, and know that once you have written your confession, you are forgiven, right? Your higher self has forgiven you. So whenever I feel guilty or shameful for anything I did, and since these are the lowest vibrational frequencies you can be in, writing out a confession really helps to raise my vibration, right? So this is one of the best methods that I know of to clear out your emotional frequencies that are below the scale. For example, there is guilt, there is shame, there's anger, there's fear, there's envy, right? So these emotions, they are not good for your frequency, they are not good for your state of consciousness, right? So it is very much important that we clear out all of these emotions inside of us, and one of the best ways to go about it is just writing out a simple confession. And at the end of the confession, you know that you are forgiven, and you will feel light, you will feel great after doing it, right? So that is the first use case that I have for this book. And the next is life rewrites. So what I tend to do is, there are certain incidents, we all have it, right? We all have certain incidents, certain events, certain circumstances that have happened in our life, but we wish that it went differently, right? So Neville Goddard talks about revision, like revising our past and revising it in a way that affects our future, right? So there can be certain incidents that still trigger you, right? So what you can do is, you can just write down how that incident could have happened that made you felt better, that made you felt more happier, more joyful, right? We all have certain events, certain incidents that we think it could have ended differently, right? So what you can do is, you can revise your past Again, take out your pen and just write down how that particular event could have gone differently, the way you wish, right? And by doing that, you change your past, right? The past and the future does not exist. What exists is the present moment, right? So your past and your future is actually malleable. You can change your memory of that certain event, of that certain past, right? And the way you do it through this book or through a, and you need not use this specific book. You can buy any book, but I would recommend buy a book that is of high quality, right? I want you to value this book, to cherish this book, to cherish your journal, right? So if you just invest $30 or $40 into a good journal, and if it looks and feels great, you will tend to cherish it more. You will tend to value it more. If it is just a notebook that was laying around in your home, it's not going to feel valuable. It's not going to feel abundant, right? So invest in a good journal, right? So coming back to the point, as I was saying, you can revise your past, right? And you can just write down whatever incident that is still triggering you, that is still making you sad. You can just write it down and write it in a way that you deem fit, right? And by changing your past, by changing your memory of it, it will stop triggering you. And once it stops triggering you, you will stop living in the past and you will start living in the present moment, right? So the first use case was confessions, and second was life rewrites, and third is intentions. So every day you can use your journal to write down your intentions. It can be your intentions for the day, it can be your intentions for the week, for the month, for the year, or it can just be it, like it need not be in a specific time period, right? So whenever I feel like it, I would write down intentions that I would like to happen, right? So these can be big goals or desires that I have, or these also can be small desires that I wouldn't mind happening. For example, I would like to have a cup of coffee for free. That's it. Or you can say I would like to meet someone that, or it can be I would like to receive $1,000 from an unexpected source. So these can be desires that you don't care about but you would like to happen. So it can be desires that you don't actually care about, but you would be happy or you would feel joyful if it happened, right? So you can write down those kind of intentions. You can even write down your big intentions, your big desires and goals that you're focused on right now, right? And you write it in a way where you either put it in the past or you write it in present tense. So instead of writing, for example, let's say you want 10 clients this month. Instead of writing I will have 10 clients this month, you can write I am having 10 clients this month. Or you can also write I am grateful that I got 10 clients this month, right? So once you put your intentions or like your desires in the past or in the present, you you imply that you already have that desire. And once you imply that you already have your desire, you will have it in the physical reality, right? Manifestation is you internally fulfilling your desires and shifting yourself from wanting to having, right? So once you shift yourself from want to have, and once you write down your intentions, you forget about it. You write it down and you leave this book somewhere else and you forget about it. You go about your life, you live your life, right? And that forgetfulness, the act of you forgetting about this, is you letting go of it, right? So once you let go, you have implied that you already have those intentions, those desires, and you let go of it. Of course you're going to have it in physical reality momentarily, right? So that is the third use case. You can write your intentions in the past tense or in the present tense, and don't write it in the future tense. If you write it in the future tense, for example, I will have this much amount of money this month, I will have perfect love this month. If you write it like that, where you put your desire in the future, then that implies that you don't already have it in the present moment. So don't do that, right? So the next use case that I have for this book, journal, magic diary is reality scripting. So what I tend to do is, whenever I feel like it, of course, like, so the reason why I say whenever I feel like it is because you can't force any of these processes. You genuinely would want to feel like doing it. You can't force this. If you force it, then there's no point in doing it, right? So what I tend to do is, whenever I feel like it, everyone of us have our desired version of reality, right? So I would take a particular scene from my desired reality and I would write it in present tense. For example, let's say my goal has been to land 50 clients this month, right? So I would write a scene that implies that I already have my desire. So I would write something like, mm, so I would write it like this. So yesterday I just landed my 50th client. I feel so joyful about it. I feel grateful that 50 people joined my program this month. And I would just write out a specific scene in detail. The more details I add to it, the more emotions I feel, the more joyful I feel, and the more I raise my vibration, right? So you can take out a specific scene from your desired reality where all your desires have already manifested, and you write down that specific scene in detail, right? And the more details you add, the more real it feels, and the more real it feels, the more emotions you feel. Emotions like gratitude, like security, like joy, bliss, happiness, whatever it may be, right? So that is how I script, and that is the fourth use case on, like, that is, and that is the fourth way on how I use my magic diary, right? And fifth is just priorities and notes. These can be generic notes, this can be priorities. For example, if I don't want to forget about something, I will write it down, right? And I would tend to look at these priorities and notes time and time again to make sure that I don't forget about it. So that's self so that is self-explanatory. So I think that's self-explanatory, right? And next is general journaling. So, like, if I want to contemplate about something, if I want to reflect about something, then I will write it down over here, right? There is no set structure, there is no rigid structure that I want you to follow with my method, right? Because if you tend to follow a rigid structure, then that completely negates the point that I'm trying to convey here. If you want to confess about something, you can do it. If you want to revise your past, you can do it. If you want to script about your desired reality, you can do it, right? If you want to just take random notes, if you just want to journal about something, you can do it. If you just want to put down your thoughts on a piece of paper, you can do it. The more you use it, the more power it gets. Let me repeat it again. The more you use it, the more power it gets, right? Everything is just energy. The more energy you pour into this particular notebook that you have, the more energy it gets and the more powerful it gets, right? So there's no rigid structure that I follow. So if you want, you can have a rigid structure, but I don't, right? So the fifth use case is just writing down my priorities and notes, and the sixth use case is me just journaling, like writing down my ideas, expanding upon my ideas, or contemplating about certain thing, or it can be anything. So we can just label it as generic journaling, right? And lastly, the seventh way I use this magic diary is me communicating with God. If you think you can't communicate with God, if you have that limiting belief, you can just think of your higher self, right? So I tend to have many questions in my manifestation journey, right? Or in life, or life in general. And if I can't figure out an answer, I would ask the highest source, right? So what? So how I do it is, I just sit down, take a pen, and write down my question, and I just think of the highest version of myself, or God, or the highest source, right? And I just look down at the question and I repeat it again, and sometimes automatically the answer will come up, right? You can, like, if this process is so natural to you, you can pretend, you can just start thinking, how would the highest version of myself would respond to this question, and 9 times out of 10 it will be the right answer, right? So think of your highest version of yourself and just think, how would the highest version of myself would answer this question. For example, let's say I have a problem, right? And I write down the problem, and I ask for the so I write down the problem and I ask for an answer. If I can't sense that answer coming to me, I would just think, what would the highest version of myself would tell me, would advise me on? And I just write down that answer that I think that the highest version of myself would say, right? And 9 times out of 10, 99% of the time, it will be the right answer, right? So that is the seventh way I use this diary, right? So this can also be a conversation. Like you can even converse with your highest version, with God, right? So it can be a conversation, or it can be just you asking a question and letting the answer come up. And if you still can't get an answer, if you still can't think of an answer, just lay down the question, set an intention in your mind that I want to find this answer and I will find it momentarily, and just close it down and just go about your day. Just let it go, and the answer will come to you. And it will come to you at random times. So sometimes it can come to you while you're showering. Sometimes it can come to you while you're deeply focused on something else, right? So you will get that answer. All you have to do is have faith that you will get the answer. So that is the seventh way on how I use this diary, and I think that's it. So those are the 7 ways on how I use my journal, my diary, and and this is powerful, right? Because this is this is enough to manifest all your desires. This is enough to clear out your trauma, clear out your emotional blockades. Like, this practice is so powerful, right? So, and you need not use it in all 7 ways. Like, you can just have a book, a diary, to just write out confessions, or to just rewrite your life, or to just write intentions. Like, I personally have 7 ways that I use this. But you can, if you want to just use 3, if you just want to use 3 use cases from this video, you can. Like, you have complete freedom to do whatever you want. Like, this is how I use it, right? Like, if you want to just take certain parts of this video and leave the rest out, you can. You have the ultimate freedom with this technique. This is not even a technique, because a technique tends to have rules to follow, right? So this is just a way of doing things. So I hope this video was helpful for you. And if you want to work with me personally, then check out the link in the description. And that's it. I will see you in another video.